actually introduce Andrea, although Benedetta has already introduced him. And tonight we're going to discuss his book, Il Libro delle Case, the Book of Homes. I have here both the copy in Italian and in English. This is a book that was published in 2021 and was finalist for the Premio Strega and for other awards. And it's been translated into many languages. And it was actually translated and published here in the United States in 2025. So it's pretty recent. And this is also why the opportunity to talk about this book. Whereas Andrea won the Strega Prize in 2025 with l'anniversario, the anniversary, which is going to be out, I think, Andrea, in this summer in 2026. And so we hope that for that occasion, Andrea will be able to visit us in person, hopefully.
Yeah.
And yeah, maybe that's a good way, hopefully we'll make it happen. Andrea teaches creative writing at the university, the Rice University in Houston. So the conversation tonight will be a little bit about from the point of view of a reader or a writer, and it's a very personal narrative. So I have a lot of questions also about the philosophical approach of this book, actually, the philosophical reflections that I found in this book. Usually when we have these conversations, I'm always a little bit afraid to give spoilers, right? Because there are people in the audience who want to read the book and haven't had the chance yet. But I want to say that in this case, that's not a danger because the novel is actually quite experimental, is not very traditional linear narrative. The plot is actually, something that we readers engage with very actively because it doesn't have a beginning, a middle, and the end. And so the readers can actually have their own conclusions, I would say, in looking at the different events in the story. So I actually think that the book is quite a philosophical, despite the storytelling elements, quite a philosophical reflection on time, memory, space, identity, existence. So we'll have a little bit of opportunity to talk about these aspects. So why is the structure very unconventional and not traditional? First of all, it's called the Book of Houses, right? So it's structured in many short chapters. There are 78 chapters, and each chapter is a home. And some homes recur in the narrative. For example, the first home, that is the underground home, is the first house, but returns in chapter 4, returns in chapter 50, returns, right? So there are some houses that return in the narrative. And each house is also a year, a date. So according to the dates, we can also infer the protagonist's age. In fact, we go from the childhood of the protagonist through adolescence and, middle age. So different moments of the life of the protagonist. And then the houses that open each chapter and give title to each chapter are very described in very details. There's a very precise description. There is an architectonic description. There is the layout of the house, the planimetry, details of the interior design. It's a very, we can completely picture these homes, these houses. We can really inhabit them together with the protagonist of the story. And in the book, there are some floor plans of 9 or 10 houses that are, digital copies of that. I also want to say that home is also not only what we always mean with it, meaning like a space surrounded by walls, but home is also, for example, a telephone box. If you guys remember the telephone cabins in Italy, some of the chapters about that really reminded me of something of my adolescence and childhood, those amazing Italian, telephone boxes where you could really fight for your privacy. So there is a description of that as well in the book. But also home is a checking account, is a wedding ring. So it's a very expansive, conception of home besides, the physical space. So inevitably, the question is, how you decided to conceive this structure, right? Because in every home, we have a snapshot of life. We have a situation, we have some events. And so through the homes, we actually learn about these protagonists, right? So how did you decide to conceive the book
Yeah.
this way through the homes, and what's the genesis of the novel?
Yeah. So thanks, Sarah. Thanks, really, everybody. I'm so sorry. I'm here. I'm not so far away from you guys, but last year it was so much traveling for me, and this is going to be so much traveling, and I have to teach as well, so I couldn't miss uh, other classes. So I have to stay. I'm here, and yeah, we are not that far, and but yeah, hopefully next summer, maybe in the
Mhm.
fall, we'll be together for I don't know, to talk about the anniversary. So it's very interesting to me. I'm always happy to talk about this book because this book is kind of perceived or described always as an experimental book. Now, meaning, and it's also considered as non-traditional and not linear, and it's also everything you said and everything everybody says about it. It's always, for me, is always true. But at the same time, the origin of this book was so incredibly human and so incredibly personal. So um, it happened in 2017. I was a fellow at the American Academy in Rome. I was an Italian fellow there, and the American Academy in Rome happens to be in the same neighborhood as I was born in 1975, and. And when I was there, I happened to think, oh, let's go see uh, where my house is. No, meaning it was a house that didn't belong to me or to my family anymore. Was a house that someone else, in which someone else was living in, and so I had the curiosity of kind of go see the house, and. And at the same time was a curiosity about my childhood, and was also a curiosity of I was really thinking of when Leonard Cohen says, "Show me the place where suffering began." No, and childhood is always the place where we try to kind of we go to try to investigate what happened in our life. Why are we the people we are? Why we are suffering the way we are suffering, or why we are happy the way we are happy. So what happened is that basically I went there. Long story short, I knocked at the door. There were two old people living there. They let me in, and when I got out of this place, was a very interesting experience, and it's kind of the experience that I think everybody would like to do, not to go see the house where you were, or the apartment, the home where you were a child. And when I went there, I when I left the house, I was kind of slightly upset and disappointed. And the reason why I was disappointed was not only because they renovated the house in a terrible way, so it was an aesthetical disappointment. But most of all, I was disappointed because I all of a sudden realized that. Uh, the real thing I was expecting or I was hoping was not to see the place, but I was, in a way, hoping that the 3-year-old guy I was when I lived there would come, run towards me, and hug me. I was hoping to meet the self I was when I was a little one. And then all of a sudden, after this visit, and after thinking that, I walked back to the American Academy thinking, oh, actually, all the people we were at a certain age are kind of preserved in the houses where we lived in. No, and the houses are the only places who really, which really know everything of us. And so, walking back to the academy, I thought, oh, the only way to really try to tell the story of a person would be just to collect the houses where he or she or they spent their life. And so I basically went there, I went back to the academy, and all of a sudden, I saw this structure, and it was not an experiment. To me, it was very natural. Was kind of putting together. I started making a list of the places where I lived in my past, and then from then I became a character. So I invented other houses, but the point for me was also, as you were saying, as you were perfectly describing, it goes from one house to another in the following chapter and from one time to another in the following chapter. But this sounds very experimental, but it is exactly what we do in our everyday in our everyday life, where our memory all of a sudden talking to a person goes back to for one moment to the adolescent, to the teenager we were, and then walking by we smell something that kind of brings us to our childhood and so on and so forth. So basically, after visiting the houses where I was a child, I kind of thought and envisioned the whole structure of the book. And I started kind of putting together, like in a puzzle, all
Yes.
the snapshots of the
Eh,
life of a person.
Yes, thank you for this full description because you're right. I think you're also tapping desire that is very human, to go back to the houses that
Yeah,
if you can't, of course, some people can,
yeah.
but if the houses that you lived in and to meet your own selves, which it really happens, in front of our eyes on the pages of this book. So another interesting, perspective that you offer in the book, besides this structure of, the houses, is also the point of view, right? The POV from which it is narrated. And the narrator refers to the protagonist as I, which will be io in Italian. So essentially the first person pronoun. And so being I the name of the protagonist or the unnamed, is addressed in the third person. So, just to explain for those of you who haven't read the book, we see that this creates a dissonance in the grammar, right? The grammar, in fact, even the computer was correcting me all the time, every time I had to write something about that, right? So, an example is one of the first things I remembers. I standing on the balcony. I stays awake a long while staring at the floor. So I is the name of the protagonist. And this dissonance in grammar is not only grammatical, but it's really kind of a dissonance with the self, right? It's a distance from which to look at oneself and our own past existence. And it's almost a refraction of the self, right? And you are able to see many versions of that self, through time and space. So the eye of 1976 of the underground home is different from the eye of the family elegant home in 2017, yet it's the same person, right? But they are different. So you can actually say the same sentence the other way around, right? So also the other characters in the novel are not addressed with their names, right? But they are addressed according to the part that they play, the relation that they have to I. So we have mother, father, sister, all with uppercase, grandmother, wife, and they don't have a name. So would you tell us more also about this choice and why it was important to you as opposed to choosing the name of a character or addressing him with he? I mean, I have my own, of course, reflections on that, but we want to hear it from you.
Yeah. Again, it happened all by instinct, meaning everything that in this book sounds so literary, like the structure, like the having the houses as frames for the life of the main character, just happened as a vision. In a way, this is a book that is a, I don't know how many pages, 270 pages, but for me was happened like a poem. Meaning I had this vision of this universe made of kind of, it's like of a similar to a condominium, and all the houses are the places in the all the apartments of the condominium are the places where we lived at a specific moment of our life. But as I was telling you, when I was disappointed that I couldn't meet the little one I was, I had the perception that this guy was me, but was I, meaning that the only way I could describe this little one was I, the same little one. We always say I at every different age. At different ages, we always say I, and we always refers to ourselves. And it's only when it's just fiction when we think that we are the same people as we were 10 years ago, meaning I don't even know how many cells we have in common. I have in common with the one, with the self I was when I was 8, when I was 9. And it's only to comfort ourselves that we say, okay, I was the same person, but probably we were not. And for me, leaving I as a name was kind of the most sincere thing I could do, meaning everyone tries to say our life is a whole battle to try to say what I means. Now, at every age, this our real name is I, is the way we live. And it doesn't matter if it's me, it's you, or is a person in the audience, but we spend our life trying to question, what does I mean? Who am I? Now, this is the big question. And we always try to kind of make a summary of what we are. So I am this person. When I was 8, I was living there. And then when I was a teenager, I was a shy person and blah, blah, blah. And we always kind of force all the past eyes we were to be consistent. No, we want to be a consistent person. So like saying, yeah, as a child, I was shy. Then when I was teenager, I was less shy. Always kind of assuming that we are the same person. So for me, this book was also to kind of give the right to each person we were at a different age to be just that, and to be I was a person when I was in college, and this person, when I was referring to me, I was saying I am. And when I am now talking to you guys, and I'm 50 and I'm in Houston, Texas, I'm saying I, and only by name we are the same people, but we are not the same people. So I was just that, just the right to be the I we are.
Yes, and I also, I mean, there's a lot to talk this, and it's a very, I think it is also an existential question, but I see this centering the personal narrative, right? And is the point of view is shifting in also in another way, in giving so much relevance to space, right? So the characters, for example, in the book lack any kind of physical descriptions, right? We can hardly picture a face of a character, including the protagonist, barely we can see, but we have a clear picture of the space of houses, homes, pillars, walls, interior design, all that. So there is a shift of point of view, right? It's a poetic of space, and I use this on purpose. It's a title of a book that I read by philosopher Gaston Bachelard, who really talks about how space contains memories, contains desires, and contains our own selves. But they also become a record of who we are and our, different selves, as you just said. So to me, I saw this shift of perspective, right, as kind of decentering of the self, just exactly what you said. And so the question would be, I mean, still probably on the same topic, Andrea, but a little bit differently. The idea that maybe decentering the self allows, the traditional narrative of the self that looks back at their own story from the inside. So it's the houses, the things, the places that actually look at the protagonist from the outside and are able to tell a different narrative. So does it kind of reflect a little bit what you were saying about this?
Yeah, but again, it's a very, um, I guess it's about, this is also a book about intimacy, meaning that what I'm always interested in is the truth of the people, meaning when are we free to be the people we are now, which is the place where we are really the person we are, no? And the only place where we are completely true is home. And the only place where we are completely true is home when we are alone. Meaning, there's no other place where we do and we are as natural and as true as we are when we are at home alone. We do things that we don't want any other people to know. We sing, I don't know, the way we
Yes,
are dressed, the way we are sitting on the couch, the way, if, I don't know, if we don't like a book, we throw the book against the wall, or all the things, even the posture, the physical posture we have, we allow ourselves things in a house that we wouldn't allow ourselves anywhere else. So, and to me, this is very interesting because when I write, I kind of look for the place where I'm the truest. No,
yes,
and this is and this is what I'm interested in as person in my life to be as true as I can to myself and to people, and I'm interested in the truth of people. Where every time I'm in conversation with someone and I kind of can see a moment, sometimes it's just 1 second of truth. I'm
yes,
always very kind of moved, and so since houses, our home is the only place where we are really natural. We are really natural because we think that nobody is watching us until, and this is the beginning of the book, you realize that the walls are watching
yes.
you, that
A
the
witness.
furniture is watching you, the objects are watching you. So basically, the only ones in the whole universe who knows, who know us as we are in our deepest truth are the houses. And that was the beginning, basically, of the story. So how can I describe the truth of a person? Only the houses can tell that story. And that's what the Book of Homes is.
Yes, the house becomes also the archive almost, becomes the witness of his existence. They somehow look back. That's what I was thinking about. It's not extremely personified. You don't use extreme personification, but that's the idea. It's the idea that the house, becomes definitely,
It's the
uh,
point
you
of view, as you were saying.
it's the point of view, right, on our lives. And actually, I want to say also history, because they have, a life of their own before and after us. That's something that you, when you went back to visit your house of your birth, of your childhood, the houses continue their own life, right? And the new tenants, and so there is a change. So, and actually, even in the chapter about, Aldo, there is some chapters that are, disseminated throughout the novel. It's called the House of the Prisoner. There is references to, political history, especially the late 70s in Italy. And they're very, I want to talk a little bit later about that, but actually it's pertinent, is the idea, in fact, that the space is watching and witnessing history and politics. In this case, the whole kidnapping of Aldo Moro was the minister, was kidnapped by the Red Brigades in the late 70s and eventually was, of course, assassinated. And there are chapters in the book where we see the car in which the body of Aldo Moro was discovered, the red Fiat. Was it the Fiat? I forget now. The Renault, yeah, the
Was a
Renault.
Renault.
Yeah, the Renault 4, the red car. So these places, right, there is another chapter to continue on the all tangential, political, historical, events that happen in the novel. There are chapters dedicated to Pierpaolo Pasolini. And, again, the narrator, the protagonist, goes to visit the place where Pasolini was assassinated at the Idroscalo. There are references to the car that actually, as you probably know, kind of rode over the body of Pasolini. So the places, the houses, the homes really are an archive of history, right? They become even larger testimonies, of our existence. In that sense, it's a poetics of space, right? Please,
Yeah.
yeah, as I said,
Eh,
you want to say about
Yeah, no, and I was thinking that for me, houses are kind of a moving invention, meaning I when I always go for walks, and I guess one of the things I like to do the most is to just walk by houses and see the windows at night with the light that is on, and just see in passing some people sitting there at their kitchen. And to me, this is always very moving because in a way, it's a little utopia, the home, the house. The
that.
idea that there's a place where we are safe, and there's a place where, theoretically, at least, we try to be happy. No, meaning houses, we kind of buy the furniture we want. We kind of think, okay, this is my habitat. This is the habitat, and this is at the same time my habitat and the theater of my intimacy. And that's why for me it is always moving, because houses are the places where in a kitchen people fall in love, or where people fight, or where they confess. And all this happens in a house. And when I walk by a house and I see a moment, or I see people just not saying anything, just watching TV or eating or reading, for me it's just kind of a little gift that
Yeah.
I'm kind of witnessing. And writing the book of homes for me was like passing by different houses in different moments of
Yeah.
life, and seeing just for some moments these people. And as for the history you were mentioning, that was very, this is very striking, meaning that, as you were saying, houses, they have a history, and sometimes we do not think, in Italy even more, because houses are so old, no, and in Europe in general we never think that much of all the ghosts that are
Yeah.
kind of
Exactly.
still living or hiding in that house. And there are places like, as you were saying, I was very interested in the apartment where Aldo Moro was kidnapped
Yeah.
and then killed, or the houses of Pasolini, and thinking in general how much we absorb, how much we kind of get from living the past of a space. Now, how much of the presence that is not spiritual is real, how much of the stories of the other we kind of inherit when
Mhm.
we enter a place.
Absolutely. A lot of people here. Just wanted to let you know about, this because we can also relate. When I first moved to here, that's one thing I would do. I would walk around and the lights in the houses. I don't know, it's something that we can relate, right? Um, One thing that I want to, discuss a little bit with you, because that's my impression, is also that because of all this external and internal, that is happening a lot in the book, that there isn't really a very nostalgic gaze to the house, actually to the homes. In particular, some of the homes that are narrated and recur in the narrative, which are the family homes, they are actually, that's where conflict actually is. Mostly there is a lot of conflict. There is a lot of family conflict. There is strife. And, there is silences. There is the figure of the father and the relationship with the son, is definitely conflictual. There's a scene where the father punches the protagonist. There is the sister who has nightmare. There are all these, elements that are conflictual. So in a way, I thought it's a representation of the homes that in the intimacy of it, as you were talking, where in reality, the ideal, the utopic, conception of a home, of a place of affection, of nurturing, safety is actually missing there. And I was wondering if for you, this lack a little bit of nostalgia, lack of, a little bit more detached gaze was emotionally also necessary for you to reflect back, on this life, because clearly, I mean, I don't think it's a secret. A lot of the narrative and the stories reflect also your personal life, So as we also learn more in the book, The Anniversary. So yeah, I was wondering a little bit if there was if you resonate with you what I'm saying, the idea that not that we need to look back at the homes necessarily always with nostalgia, but I felt that maybe there was a necessity for that distance in order not to be
Yeah.
emotionally, uh, held hostage, almost
Yeah.
hostage of
Yeah.
that.
You know, yeah, and it's interesting because I guess the device makes the temperature, meaning
Hmm.
as soon as the perspective is the perspective of the houses. So I was very interested in this gaze of someone walking by. No, and if you are walking by the life of someone else, no matter how much is connected to you, to me, how much of the sources were personal or not, as soon as you start looking at them from apart or from outside the window, everything becomes kind of with no sounds, it's distant, it's kind of on TV with no volume, no, and this is something that I guess the structure itself creates now the temperature. The anniversary, as the reader will know, has a different kind of temperature. Is everything is a kind of more direct, more straight, because
Yes,
it's told from inside the house and
exactly.
not
Yeah.
from outside the house. And then there's one thing. There are two things I was very interested in. What you were saying. One thing is nostalgia. That it's funny because I'm a very nostalgic person, meaning no matter what I do, as soon as I'm doing something, from that moment on, I will be nostalgic of that, no matter what. So I always go back to the same restaurant because I'm already nostalgic. I get out of the restaurant and I'm nostalgic. Yeah, I always take the same thing because I'm already nostalgic, no matter if I was happy or not. But probably
Yeah.
nostalgia is also kind of a reassuring place because it's a place you know.
Yeah.
No, sometimes we also go back to bad memories. Paradoxically is a reassuring act because it's the place we know. No, it's not unknown. So paradoxically, we can also paradoxically, perversely, I'm not sure, but it's also we can also go back to places we don't like because at least they are there. We know those places. They are not uh, strangers to us. And the other thing that is interesting is um, the double nature of houses, of homes, no? That they are still, I guess, the main, most popular invention of mankind, of species in general, meaning also animals do houses, make build houses to protect ourselves. No, so humans build houses to be safer, no, to be safe, to be warm, and at the same time, as soon as there's this invention that is very practical, then you put in a house something that is a family, no? And so the place that is very safe because it's warm and it doesn't rain has people that stay there in an unnatural way for so much time. So there's the contradiction in a place that is a place where that is very safe. So it's kind of a nest and a prison at the same time, because it's exactly the place where all the archaic blood, all the primary emotions like the need of love for love and trust and anger and instinct of survival and protection, all them, they kind of explode together in a place that is meant to be a protection, but at the same time is unnaturally kind
Exposing
of, yeah,
external.
and compressing people, putting people all together. And yeah, so I'm always interested in kind of seeing all the contradictions.
Yes.
And so I'm always very interested in trying to see how moving it is to try to be happy even if you have a miserable life.
That's very good. Tell us.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Um, Speaking of contradiction and paradoxes, which are really important to explore, I think, in writing, one of the paradoxes that I also saw is this relationship between memory and forgetfulness, which I think is also important in the book because on one end there is a great photographic memory in this what we call memoria photographic, the idea that there's a very I also was imagining you, Andrea, the writer, who is really putting himself there in an act, in an effort, and in a deliberately effort to remember certain things, because objects and places are also mnemonic devices, right? They trigger memory. They help, our the function of remembering, right? And so I saw that when you go into these places and you describe them so meticulously in the walls, the corners, all the details, right? It's a process for the writer to recover what is lost, right? It's getting back everything that we have lost and we have left behind. But there is another thing that is so beautifully and interesting in the book, which is some chapters that are called le case dei ricordi fuoriusciti in Italian, which would be the homes of escaped memories, the home of escaped memories, which again, interestingly enough, they don't have a year next to it, right? They just happen in different moments of life when all of a sudden, and let me actually say, really, with a couple of lines from the book, how the house of escaped memory is described. The home of escaped memory is the black box of what I doesn't remember, what his memory has refused, even if it happened. It's what allows I to steadily say I while knowing it's a lie. To me, this is not only the natural process of not being able sometimes to remember certain things, right? And that's why objects, photographs, and things like that help us. So it's inevitable that there are certain things that we don't remember, we forget about them. But here, what I see is what I would call a voluntary amnesia, the idea of not wanting, refusing to remember certain things, that they need to belong to the past. And what is really interesting, and that's where I saw also tenderness and, I don't know, nostalgia or, emotional moment, is that underneath this pile of forgotten things, there is the sister of the protagonist. The beautiful image that Andrea uses in these chapters is the chapter of these forgotten memories as dust, as sand that pile up, right? And so underneath this sand, there is the sister who is really trying to claim a memory. She's trying to say, please remember me. And this happens a few times, and it actually is the concluding chapter of the novel. That's also why I'm bringing it up, right? Because it's the moment where it almost seems, and that's a question to you, something to discuss, because it's something that is actually continues in the anniversary. We learn in the anniversary, but we learn already in this book that the protagonist cuts sharp with his own past. He leaves the family behind. And this is narrated very in detail in the anniversary. And in one of the blurbs about this book, The Book of the Houses, there is one sentence that is the one I want to discuss with you. The idea that the book dares readers to consider what they'd be willing to give up in order to keep themselves. And that's a little bit the question I wanted to ask, because it is an existential book. It is about relations. And so, yeah, do you want to share a little bit about that?
Yeah,
We give up things
yeah,
to keep ourselves. Yeah.
yeah. Um, it's I was always kind of fascinated uh, by the fact that we, speaking of paradoxes, that we are told two different things at the same time. One thing is that we, in the first years of our life, we become the people we are. That basically our personality, in a way, is shaped and is already kind of built in the first years of our life. And at the same time, we are told that what happens, we are going to forget everything that happens in the first years of our life. So, and this is a kind of a paradox. So basically, we live with the big mystery, meaning the person we became happened in a time where we cannot remember.
Yes.
No, and I think that this is the mystery we all struggle with. No, and we have all these kind of buried memories, meaning is exactly this the escape memories, as let's say Elizabeth Harris translated in a perfect way. That she's just a goddess of translating for
Yeah,
me.
beautifully translated.
Translation, yeah, yeah, and and so this is the process that I guess everybody goes through. Now, what happens to the things that we don't remember, and why we do not remember them? No, we know that everything we do is kind of meant to protect us.
Mhm.
No, our brain does that. No, is you can call it denial, you can call it the way you want, but in a way, there are some things that happened, and uh, and sometimes there are some triggers all of a sudden, and of course, the Madeleine of Proust is the most
Yeah.
famous one, but there are some moments where we all of a sudden, like a little epiphany, like a little lightning, we remember things, or we think we are remembering, because we have some this of these lightnings, of these epiphanies, and we are not even sure that we really experience that. They show up as memories, but we really don't know exactly where they come from. And if you, meaning sometimes you try to, even with friends, to remember the same episode, and nobody has the same version of it, no? Because our brain is conceived this way, not to basically grabs only the things that are useful for it to kind of preserve us, no, and kind of throws away and hides all the things that are not meant to preserve you, and not necessarily to save you, because they can also, the
Yeah.
way the brain works is that the brain wants to be confirmed, no. And so if you think that you had a terrible childhood, the brain is going to confirm that.
Yes.
And no matter whatever happened in your life, the brain will give you all the things that will confirm that you had a terrible childhood. So our brain not necessarily helps us. So for me, this the home of escape memories, for me, is in a way the most important. The home of escape memories, yes, is in a way the most important one, because this is it's kind of a fragile one. It's a space. It's the space where we kind of realize that we chose a version, that every day we choose a version of ourselves, and we can do that only forgetting, only kind of cutting off all the memories that we do not want. Sometimes we do it by by will, we don't want, and sometimes it's our brain, no. And in a way, I think that generally speaking, writing is the only way you know that. I think is the only way to get to the place or to those years where things happened and we do not remember.
Yes, in fact, and I also want to go a little bit toward the conclusion. I assume with time, what is it, time? No? Yes. There's just really a couple of other things. But on that note, Andrea, I was thinking how paradoxically and beautifully the book of Holmes that is now completed, translated, maybe it's on your shelf, it's on your desk, right? It is a home
Yeah.
itself, it's a house, it's a place where you actually can go and actually have, you don't even almost need to remember certain things because now the book that you wrote is going to be really a record, for you. It's really a house. And so I was really, and it's just a beautiful thing that actually writing does. But among the many houses that you wrote, right, about, is there, since I actually said, oh, I don't see the nostalgia, but you said, no, I'm actually a nostalgic person. Is there a house among the ones that you described that you would like to go back to, that there is more longing, somehow?
Yeah, that's interesting because I'm a nostalgic person, but the I is not me. And that's the whole thing, is that then when you turn yourself or into a character, then there's nothing. There's no. In a way, there's no. All the houses are closed now. There's no, I have no nostalgia of any place, but I can say that in the book there's a house or a character that I like the most, and this turtle. So
Turtle. I was about to
the
say.
turtle, yeah, the turtle is the only non-human character of the Book of Holmes. And in a way, if there's a space for tenderness in the book,
Exactly.
is
It's
in the
the turtle.
turtle.
Yeah.
Is the turtle is an animal, and it is the relationship between the
Yeah.
kid, the I as a kid, and the turtle, the turtle. And and every time you readers will find a turtle, you'll smile, and you'll relax.
True.
So it's a book. Yeah, when you enter this book, you have to kind of forget the idea of wanting to follow a story from the start to the begin to from the beginning to the end. You have to just enjoy every single house as a short story, because every chapter is a whole short story. And then every once in a while you will run into a turtle, and this turtle will always be at the same time welcoming, and and it is the wisest character of the novel, meaning that for me the function of the turtle, that is, I mean, the best architect, no, is the one who always has the home with itself, and for me was also kind of an ironic device, just to say that turtles are just the last heirs of dinosaurs, the last of the dinosaurs, and they live still with us. And the idea for me of having a turtle there, was also to say, um, like, as if I wanted to say, um, we live our everyday life with all our dramas, and all our conflicts, and all our griefs, and all our joys, and whatever, where everything that is happens to us every day is so important. But at the same time, there's this dinosaur that basically is just walking by the protagonist, or all these conflicted people, saying, "Come on, I saw so many species already extincted, and you guys are so
Yeah.
concerned and so upset for a marriage that just crashed, or whatever. Come on, just
Mhm.
let time go."
Yeah, I think people are smiling. I hope you can hear them,
Yeah,
but yes, there's
yeah.
some laughter. Yes, and in fact, I had a question about the turtle. In fact, I'm not going to ask the question because you already answered, but because it's true, everything you said is the wise character. Also, the turtle symbolically and really, carries a home in his own body, so it can be even a metaphor for us, the idea of you carrying your home wherever you go. But it's also, interestingly enough, the only place where I and house identify, right?
Yeah,
Really. Yes, and I identify. And so also and he also returns to the idea of, as you just said, right? But in this case, it's not the walls, it's not something inanimated, but it's a human thing, it's an animal. And so this idea of decentering the narrative of the self, by looking at how this self connects with a larger humanity, really, right? It could connect, which I thought was a very important aspect of a personal story, right? That is not only a personal story, but opens up to a wider humanity, if we can say that. A good novel should do. The last thing, Andrea, because we want to maybe have a little bit space for people to ask a question to you, and I know that some of the people here present have read your book and will read if I haven't yet. So if there are questions, I want to leave space, but I wanted to conclude with something different, which is about the purpose why we're here, which is the festival, of literary festival in San Francisco, and you are kind of helping us to launch it. So I wanted to ask you a little bit. You live outside of Italy now. It's been about 5 years, right? You're in the USA. So what do you think? What's the perspective or the gaze that, Italian literature can offer to the world and can offer to, readers who are not in Italy? So the idea of, why, now we have this opportunity for people who are not Italian to encounter Italian authors and Italian literature in translation. So what is it there that is so important, about Italian literature now in this present moment? where we
Yeah,
are
I
talking
would
about
say,
narratives.
yeah, it was something I was actually thinking of when you guys were presenting the festival, and I was actually thinking that um, if you go to Italy, but everywhere else, but to Italy, in a way, it's even more striking since piazzas are meant to be the place where people gather and where people kind of talk. And if you go to a piazza in Italy, people are just sitting on a bench and scrolling their smartphones and their phones. And so that's what I think you guys are doing with this festival, that bringing back the piazza to the piazza, meaning kind of helping the kind of not forgetting what the piazza means. That means people in a space talking together, actually um, thinking that being together with another human being matters, that sharing a space, sharing a sky, sharing a moment of life matters. So I think that what you guys are doing is something very important. So bringing from Italy something that Italy itself, like all the other countries in the whole world, now is forgetting. The idea that we have to talk to each other and we have to listen and to give space to the others to say what they think. And that's exactly what literature means for me, that writing and reading means for me. For me, reading is a piazza, is a place where I sit on a bench, in a car, on a train, and I'm there sitting there together with another person. That is the person who wrote the book when I'm reading, and we are completely in a dialogue. So let's grab from Italy something that Italy forgot, like every other country. It's not a problem of Italy, but we have piazzas, so we can try um, to save them.
Yes, that's great message. Thank you, Andrea, for that. Yes.
Yeah.